at the top level. It's about being students of the game and studying the game, and not just being exposed to like England and the Premier League, watch what's going on in all different countries. And that's where I think you can see things where managers come in and bring things that are a little bit different. So many people who want to do level 1, C licence, B licence, A licence within 4 years. There's no fast track. You've got to do the time on the grass. You've got to work with different age groups, different formats of game, 5v5 all the way up to 11v11. Look at the Everton game against Sheffield United that he's allowed to play the ball in. No one wants to pick up the striker anymore. So imagine having 2 strikers, but then they're going to pull the full back in, trying to get 2 up front, one back in. But I think now the game will evolve and go round,
Welcome to the podcast, Mike. I want to begin by bringing you back to your origins. How did coaching become a passion for you?
It came from school. My PE teacher, when I was 16, 16, in sixth form, and just asked me if I'd start helping out with the year 17 coaching. At the time, I think it was a sports leaders award or do something sort of do. Also, just got into coaching the year 17 and really enjoyed it. I think to me the level 1 or introduction to coaching was about then. And I liked it there, and then finished A levels, didn't know what I wanted to do. Got a job as a sports technician. I could have gone to uni, but I didn't. I went to work for sports in the school. And then because I had a couple of like level 1 skills, I started covering PE lessons, taking the football teams, and just started doing my coaching badges. And then 2 years later, went to John Walsh to do coaching science, and from there really.
Well, where'd you get the intrinsic drive? What's the passion? What is it about coaching that you enjoy the most?
Nowadays, it's a little bit of at Liverpool is a bit like it's just my little escapism from this job. So my role now, I'm far away from teaching and coaching in the managerial position. So actually, Liverpool when I'm coaching 2 or 3 times a week with them, it just being out on the grass, working with players, having a laugh with the players, but also just adding to their, adding little bits to their journey on the way. Obviously, working with the youngsters now, but it's really cool. They just got so much energy. They're like little sponges, and it's the 2 hours just goes so fast when you're there. So it's just keeping involved, giving something back, and that just enjoyment really going. Like I don't see it I see it as my hobby now. It's my hobby away from my main job here.
And in terms of maybe your journey, you mentioned sports assistant and kind of going to John Moore's and then working in academy settings and educational settings. Was there anyone that inspired you or was kind of a bit of a mentor towards your journey that enabled you to be consistent and persistent to kind of be where you are now?
Yeah, I think too. What first one when I was at John Moore's, we'd had placements, so you have to go and spend some time at a club. I spent mine at Everton. And also at the time when I was at the sports college, Everton scholars came to do their study. So I did my level 2, 18, 19 with the scholars really. So there was a coach there, Tosh. He was at Everton for years, went out to America. Really good coach, really good with the kids. So being just around him, watching what he does, getting ideas off him was fantastic. And then me 3rd year at uni at Man City, I started off observing, ended up in a coaching role in the pre-academy, but just watching Alex Gibson with the youth team. I used to get down there early before I'd be with the 7s or 8s, just watching what he did. Paul Power as well, he was there. So just being around guys like that working, at the time they're like Sturridge and that's all down. Micah Richards were just coming through then. So just being around people like that, the knowledge, they had the experience in the game. And then just coaching different clubs. There's a guy at Moscow, Phil Brown. He's full-time at Preston, non-league, but he really helped me on, and he was knowledgeable of the game. He had a really good non-league career. When I was at Wrexham, Steve Cooper was really good as the head of Wrexham's academy. Obviously at Forest now. So it's just not only the knowledge, but just how they are, and how they present themselves, how they talk to the players. Just had that little bit about them. It's like, oh yeah, really just inspired you and think about, I might try and do that, or I want to be like that. Not try and copy someone, but just they take little bits of everybody,
Yeah.
which is really good.
That was going to relate to my next point in terms of being authentic then. So how do you know when you're observing to kind of absorb and take that? And what do you know what is good knowledge and bad knowledge in terms of that observation?
I suppose it's what what type of knowledge you're looking at. Sometimes just how they are with players, how they ask questions with players, how they're organised, sometimes just come back across calm. I think that some of the guys, when you watch guys like that as well, they're not trying to give so many fancy words out to players, like, they like talk to their language and language that players are going to understand, whether that's an 8-year-old or whether that's a first team player. It's just to make it as simple as anything really. And I think, taking snippets of what they do, whether that their coaching behaviour, how they give feedback, their organisation, just little things like that, and you think, I might try that doing that way, or I might try something, and just add it to your kind of toolbox and coaching really.
How's coaching evolved over time then, or even football as a kind of an area? How has that evolved over time since obviously you started, and kind of joked about your age and the amount of time that you maybe experienced within the game? How do you think that's changed and developed, and where do you maybe see it going in the future in terms of those areas around leadership and management? And
I think definitely from a coaching point of view, it's very much more interpersonal skills. The old stop, stand still, blow your whistle, command. Everything was very when I was doing mine, it was like stop, stand still, command. There's not much question and answer. To go the other way with the youth modules that I did, different pedagogies, teaching games from the standing. But I think there's a place for both. Like when I did my masters, really was a big. It was challenging because I used to coach a certain way because I've been around some maybe more older school coaches as well, and then do your masters and go, everything I'm doing is wrong. I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't do that. I need to do this way, and then realise that actually it's a balance. It's a balance of when you might need to tell a player to do something, when you can give them the freedom, the trial and error, the question answer. Can you try and discovery? So I think that the one thing I've learned is it's a balance of everything. There's not old school's not wrong. The new, it's about using the right coaching intervention at the right time with the right people. There's players that you might be. Just tell me, Mike. I don't want the questions. Just tell me what I'm doing wrong, and I want to get on with it. Yeah. There might be players where I can stop. Like you might be one that actually I could stop the session and I can work with you because you're not bothered. But there might be other players, if I did that, the confidence goes. So it's getting to know your players right. I know with Chair over there that I can't stop the session and go and correct something he does, because if he does, he's done. So actually I might have to pull him out. So it's understanding what your players like, don't like, what their needs are, and it's a balance. And sometimes, you can't always get it right because spare the moment, you might just do something. But the more that you can, that interpersonal relationship, know what motivates the players, demotivates the players, I think that's the biggest thing. And having all these things in your circle for me is really important. But the biggest thing is that from being the bad man, Alex Ferguson, shouting at everybody, to now it's a bit of both. And I think there is a time and a place for that.
Yeah.
But I think if you it's a now and again, I think the players will react to it more. Whereas I think people have got of this shouting at me. People don't. The world's changed. People aren't like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it's a time and a place, but that's a massive shift for me. I think coaching practice as well has changed massively from very much to real practices and skill back to more games like practice again. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and as a coach you've got to decide how much time you've got with your. If you're full time at a club and you've got them 4 or 5 times a week, well, you can do skill practice. You can do more intrinsic. You've got your grassroots coaching. You got once a week. You're probably going to want to do more fun and game stuff because it's just about time really. And again, I think that's a change. But again, there's a time and place for it all. But it's about balancing. I'm definitely more on the game side of things. I look everything if I can make it related to the game. I think it's got important that. But there is that time and place where you've got to master the technique, or you've got to do that one-to-one isolation stuff, because you look at the top players in the world when they finish training. Ronaldo, they go and do his skills. Basketballers are going to do 100, 200 free throw shots. Cricketers will be but they go away and do that practice. So I think it shows there's still as important team at the very top that they're going to do it. So the youngsters should do it.
How do you build a rapport then with your team? You mentioned it's understanding the individual. What kind of things do you do to enable you to understand, to get the best out of people? And it doesn't necessarily have to be coaching. It could be other areas. It could be people working in business or kind of leadership positions, educators, where they're trying to improve people that they're with. What kind of things do you think are relevant there?
I think just getting to know people just on a personal level. Know where they're from, what they like, family environment. I mean, even at Liverpool, the kids, where it's just getting to know the kids, getting to know the parents. I think that's one thing that's been massive again in my journey. I used to be, no, I don't really want to know the parents. Let's not know about the kids. I'm the coach. You're that. I think again, it's over time. So they're getting to know the people, spending the time, people asking questions, trying to see what do they want to get out of it. Maybe working with staff or coaches or play. What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? How can I help you on that journey, really? And it's a kind of a two-way process, really, helping that. But I suppose you work in a management position, you getting to know your team. I think for me, in management positions and a coach, again, change where I think you've got to put that distance sometimes in of going, oh no, I can't be. And I think at times it's professionalism and that, but you've still got to have that, let's go and have a chat and have that approach with him coming to you and talk about, not having a problem at work or on the pitch, but that personal problem, you might pass it on to someone, but being that approachable person, I think's massive. Just look at someone like Jurgen Klopp. Now he's with Liverpool players and everything like that. Not saying you have to be like that, but again, it just shows that there's that connection, that human error, which I think's cracked in more the last 10 years, really.
So your specialist areas, especially around this kind of technical and tactical area, you did a PhD on that. Do you want to kind of maybe give us an overview of what you've found and researched and why that's kind of a bit of a passion for you within the area of football coaching?
Yeah, I think tactics, strategies, systems of play has always been, I've loved it from an early age, fascinating me. I used to watch Italian football, Serie A, when it was on their Channel 4, really, Italy, and I think I just always had of watching it and then watching games and different tactics and strategies and being a tutor. I think that the game at the top level has become so tactical. And one of the things we've got at the moment is that coaches, I think, are just trying to copy of what the top managers are doing, but they don't understand the why. And one of the things that I looked at on my D-Prof is looking at kind of levels of knowledge of declarative, procedural and conditional knowledge. If you're chatting in the pub and everyone can tell you why England weren't very good the other day or Liverpool have gone wrong, we can have that chat. No, not saying it's all right, but people's that knowledge is right, okay. But then the next level and understandable, why do you do it, when do you do it, is where again people aren't getting that aren't having that understanding, and that conditional knowledge of understanding when, where, how, and why to do something is one of the problems that we see with the education, because I think they're missing the grounding and foundation of the principles of play, of understanding what the attacking defensive principles are, the transition. So I was looking at, well, what knowledge do these coaches come into on a level 3 course, and again it was looking at, well, not only just for me asking them questions, can they show me how I use Subutio, and it was interesting how if I asked them a question on a certain thing, they might not be able to know what it is, principles of play, but actually when they show me, well, how do you play at this moment, they understood what the width principle is, how they put the Subutio players. So they kind of had a procedural knowledge but didn't have a conditional knowledge, so it wasn't linear going from procedural, and you probably got some players who have got like a conditional knowledge. It's top players, some of the top players who might not manage, so they don't understand the process because they can just do it and they haven't got the build. So it's a new area, but it was really fascinating that I wanted to look in and then assessing these coaches. Okay, after so long going to be licensed, what's the conditional knowledge gone like, did they understand when, where, why, how to apply whatever their topic they were doing, and then it was then trying to chunk that knowledge for them. Okay, what is the idea that you want to get across?
Can we overcomplicate tactical information? Obviously, we obsess, new coaches, fans obsess over certain formations, playing out from the back, inverted centre backs, etc., etc. Is the game simpler than that, or do you find yourself over analysing or overcomplicating tactics? Because there's always that argument, isn't there, of kind of simple messages and make the game simple. But then when we see kind of successful people recently, there's a different method and a different style. I'm just intrigued on that.
I think for me as a coach, you've got to know. You know all the tactics, you know all the your strategies. You know what you want to do. I think that the thing is, you've got to make it. I said it. You've got to make it simple for the players, and they understand, why am I doing that? No, we're going to half spaces. We're going to, maybe I say it in a bit. Well, we've got to understand. Well, what are you? It's the information you. It's the information you give the players that make it simple. This is why we're doing it. This is what I want you to do. We don't have to use all the jargon. If you're coaching a session, you're not going to use, right, I want my team to disperse. Well, that's one of the coaching practices. Well, no, what does that mean? And you've got to put it in language and information. So, like with the little ones, we're saying them, can you find space? Can you play forward? One that I always like to use the little ones, and I remember Sterling saying something similar. Probably a little bit more detailed this from Pep, but I was asked the players if they're going to get the ball, if they're on my side of the pitch, can I see their number? So can I see their number if they want to get the ball, so they can see at least 3 corner flags? Again, if they're on the side, can their parents see their number? So it's just a little reference. Can they see your number? Because they might be facing the ball. Again, defending play, just with the little ones, goal side. Well, what's goal side and all that? Well, actually, when the ball is in front of you, can you see the player's number? If you can't see your player's number, can you go and find your player's number, apart from the man? So it's just little messages like that make it simple, but the players understand, oh, I'm doing that, and then you can start adding, the why, but not making it too complicated for them.
What do you think coaches make it complicated? Is it kind of an inferior of themselves, trying to come across as knowledgeable, and they use terminology such as that, but they don't necessarily know what it means? There must be a justification, because they've clearly observed or seen someone do it, and they're kind of replicating that. Yeah,
I think one, it's two things. One, I think it's using buzzwords, because that's the common thing to say at the moment. So a lot coaches will use like buzzwords and terminology without understanding. Yeah. But why do you want to get it in there? I've gone out and seen an observation where someone's done counter pressing. Well, you're not counter pressing. You call your session counter pressing, but that isn't counter pressing. You're just actually working on pressing the ball.
Yeah.
Half spaces. Yeah. Inverted. I think people just get carried away. And the other thing is, I think sometimes it's like trying to show knowledge. Oh, I know this term. I know that. Well, they don't need to, because it's about you. Was it Einstein who said it? You can't explain it to an 8-year-old, then you don't know it yourself. And I think we don't have to know all these fancy words. It's trying to use language that you understand, so you know it, but the players understand that behind the reasons behind it, really.
So how do you think that was adapt over time then, in terms of giving information, and we talked off air around different generations and how they absorb knowledge and short snippets, etc. We've got new tools such as analysis and potentially AI impacting football in the future. How do you think this will go around these areas to kind of modify and change the game and improve it?
I think with football, everything's a cycle.
So do you think the 4-4-2 will come back?
I think the 4-4-2 will come back. Like, I think if I was going to non-league, I would try and play some sort of in possession 4-4-2.
Why?
I think even if you look at the top flight, like when I was growing up playing at the back, it was we had to mark a striker. Now 2 centre halves, 1 striker. You don't have to look at the Everton game against Sheffield United that he's allowed to play the ball, and no one wants to pick up the striker anymore. So imagine having 2 strikers. Well, then they're going to pull the full back in. So I think trying to get 2 up front I think will come back in. But I think I think the game will evolve and go round. You know, that what Pep played, the 3-2-2-3, what we've seen the MWWM. Well, that was a system that Italy played years ago to try and break Hungary and how they were playing. You know, the inverted 9. I always ask the question, when did the false 9? When did the first false 9 invented? Well, people say it was invented in like 2000 something. Well, no, Hungary played it 1930s. The old 3-2-5 formation. Then you had and obviously systems and formations and just changed them. You talk about the inverted. Well, he actually started doing it with Lam at Bayern Munich when Lam was playing midfield. Well, in possession he has one role, out of possession he has another. Delph was doing it, in the year when they had success there going left back. So I think that formations and systems, Martin Jol brought the 4-2-3-1, then Raphael really liked it. So I think systems will just evolve, and then what happens is everyone tends to copy it, and then someone will do something clever and go, oh, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do this, and like the inverted fullback. And then I think it was the Stones was doing it so well. I think it was against Liverpool, and then in the second half he was at centre half and stepped in from centre half, and Henderson was shouting over to the benches to say, and then was that a touch of genius, because then that allows you Kyle Walker to get back in the game. Kyle Walker then plays as a right side centre back, and then there's a different problem, because actually Kyle Walker's a get on. If Stones doesn't go, he can go on, and then Liverpool struggle, and Trent comes and plays an inverted fullback. It's something that we were doing when was that before COVID, getting our fullbacks to come inside. Not as much as Pep's evolved it now, is in terms of the fullback comes in to get on the ball from the goal kick. Ours is very much once the ball goes past, can the fullback step in, kind of the old way that used to do with Lam and who else was, and Delph, that phase of it really.
So the history repeats itself then.
Yeah, I think it'll come around, and I think you'll see. I thought might not be in my generation, but probably yours, because a few years younger than me, you'll probably see 4-4-2 back around. I think in the lower leagues as well, 4-4-2 sometimes time used. But again, it's understanding now that systems aren't this rigid 4-4-2, 4-3-3-3-5-2, and you might see teams playing one system in possession, one system out of possession. So it might not be the old days of it's 4-4-2 and 4-4-2 up, but I think going round even the next 10 years, you'll see some type of 4-4-2. Whether in possession, if you look at Man City, not Southampton last season before, but a lot they defend out of possession was 4-4-2. Front two, old basic level 2 stuff. Front man goes, second man cover, copy and body position. So even then, last season before, teams out of possession were going back to kind of and even sit at the top, back to a 4-4-2 out of possession as soon as we get it. I don't know, sometimes City play when you get the ball, to be fair.
But I was going to ask around that, because there might be a point where there's so many formations, he said in possession, out of possession, that teams could potentially play 3 or 4 during a game just to kind of get through certain periods of the game. Do you think that will kind of evolve as well in terms of maybe the different styles that can be used? Games are longer, subs are kind of more now. I
can't remember the start. I was reading the other day, Arteta, Arsenal used, I don't know how many different systems, but 3 seasons ago Man City used 21 different systems within the season.
Is that based on them, or is it based on the opposition?
I think it's a bit of both. One of our students did his dissertation on it, so he looked over Man City over 15 Premier League games, and he also looked at like the scoreline, state of the game, and it was only just tiny little tweaks depending on what the opposition was going, between whether it was a 2 at the back, a 3 at the back, who was in which spaces. But yeah, quite fascinating to watch how they change into little tweaks. But some coaches split the game into thirds or even more, and the system can change just when it's in playing out from the back into the middle third, into the next middle third, into the final third. And I think sometimes you get too hung up on systems. It's about creating space. How do we create space? How do we move, exploit space defensively? How do we stop the opposition getting space? How do we get them forward? But I think Luton as well. I think Luton used to change their 3 or 4 times in a game. I remember against Blackburn, I think they were on top and then changed it. And changing it back didn't work and allow Blackburn to get in the game. The game was out and speaking to the coach about it. It's like for 20 minutes couldn't live with them. And all of a sudden they made the change.
Right.
And it counteracted what they were doing. So yeah, I think at the top level, the top coaches are doing that really. But I think sometimes, unless you've got the players to do it massively, and the players who are clever enough and willing to do it, I think it's difficult, and sometimes you just got to try and keep it simple and play to the players' strengths.
Just on that then, so, obviously you look at the period of managers going into football clubs and the time given, and you want to maybe influence a team and a style of play, and it's understanding whether you have the players or not. How do you kind of keep loyal to your tactical awareness or tactical ability to try and play in a certain way? But also, you've got limited time, and that adjustment and transition takes a while to see in terms of results on the pitch.
I think in professional football, I think it's very difficult. You might have your own, I suppose, start game model, and you've got an idea of how you want to play, what type of players you're having in each position, how we're going to play in possession, out of possession, transition. Yeah, a lot of coaches are going down this route. It's what we cover on one of our masters modules. But at the end of the day, at the top level, you're 6 games away from the sack, and sometimes you have not got the time, especially when you're going in mid-season, or at some point you've not really got that much time to try and put your stamp on it. And sometimes you've got to look at the personnel you've got, what style, what approach can we get out with here? What can we get about the best out of the players? And then you've got to try and get them to buy in. So I think sometimes it's difficult to go with, unless you're given a project like Arteta, Klopp, Pep, where you've got time and you've got a project where I'm going to put my stamp on.
Yeah.
Pep completely changed out City, where Liverpool changed, on the Klopp, Arteta has been changed over the years. I think unless you've got time, it becomes very difficult to put your...
So does the manager have to adapt to the players that he has to give himself or her time?
I think you've got to play to your strengths, team strengths, players' characteristics. What's going to get about the team? I think it's dangerous territory now going in and try and change players, unless it's a project and you've got time and you're the back and the board, and are very hard without pre-season. I think Conte, when he went to Chelsea, wanted to play 3 at the back. He'd always played it, and the players weren't buying into it until I think it was the Arsenal game when they had a bad start and he played it and we beat Arsenal, and then he played it again and won, and then from that moment they went on and won. But again, he was probably working on that in training, but then going back to what they want, but trying to get the players to buy into it. But yeah, I think it's so difficult. If you're at a grassroots or lower level, I think you've probably got more time to put on your... But again, it's all around your coaching domain. Can your players do what you want them to do? Are they capable of doing it? I want my full-backs to bomb on. Well, what's your left-back got? Well, your left-back's got a great left foot, but he doesn't really get on. Well, we might have to adapt to what's his strength. So I think all the time, you've got this ideology or this great idea, of what it wants to look like, but depending on your coaching situation, you've got to adapt, and you can still take some of your key football principles into that, but you may have to adapt to try and get success, or actually you might have to adapt to try and get success for the team and the players and what they want out of it, really.
In terms of obviously the tactical knowledge to consider the advancement of football, how do you kind of stay on top of that? If you are maybe thinking about new strategies and new methods, and you mentioned different types of things that have emerged or have kind of been brought back from history, how do you think that enables the game to become better, and how is that applied? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. Probably tackle it two wells. I think if we start going we just bring it back down to coaches in general. I think coaches have got to get back down to understanding as I said earlier, the key principles, and with the players who've got in characteristics, what principles can we get out? Yeah. And not always necessarily copying about everybody wants to, play out from the back because, that's the way. I still don't understand it why sometimes some teams in the Premier League, want to come out and play out of the back. I remember Liverpool v Huddersfield near the bottom of the league. Why are you trying to play out from the back when you haven't got the players to do it against the best Gega pressing sides in Europe at the time? And within 45 seconds, they're 1-0 down. It's like, and they persistent, and not until the second half, when I know the game was gone because I think it was 4-0 at half time. But then he started going long and turning Liverpool and putting Liverpool missing out the press. It's like, well, why didn't you just come and do that in the first place? I think at the lower end, it's understanding them principles, and maybe because coach education's changed a little bit, level 1 and 2, and there's not as much emphasis on them because the courses are so short, and it's probably Noel's better place because either there is research on the policy or whoever's in charge will say, well, we need to, it needs to be more about the physical side or the social side or the pedagogy sides, and so it's such a short course, something gets watered out. We see that at B license because they're trying to coach. They can see a tactical problem, but often the tactical problem is down to a technical error. I can't remember who said it. So without technique, there's no tactics. Is the your defender's body position, or he's not closed down the ball, or he's showing him, or someone's not supporting the ball. So I think at that lower level there, and I think at the top level, I think it's about being students of the game and studying the game, and not just being exposed to like England and the Premier League. Watch what's going on in all different countries, and that's where I think you can see things where managers come in and bring things with a little bit different. And sometimes it might be a Brazilian manager or a Portuguese because it's something that's happening in them countries. So it's looking around the world and saying, well, what's the next thing that's going to happen? And also, Wenger saying years ago about the formation in the future would be 6-4-0. Well, Spain ended up playing it in the European final, didn't they? So I just think it's at the top end. It's about looking at different things, looking where the next players are, looking at different trends in different countries, and it's just all about trying to get that advantage. Whether two strikers come back, whether you have a lopsided system where you overload one side of the pitch. Our Man City, I've been doing it the last couple of years. But I think you've got to be a student of the game. You've got to keep these top managers studying all the time and looking at what the team's objective is. But I think for some coaches and managers, you've got to be careful. I'll use a Stoke City for an example. What they were known for, bring a different type of manager in, bring a new type of player in. It was success for a season, get to two semi-finals of the cup, and then bang, gone. And then that died, and then they struggle. So I think sometimes clubs will have an identity that they've kept with for years, and I think sometimes if you lose that identity because everyone wants to try and be someone else, I think that's the hard time as well at times.
What do you think there's the perception of maybe British coaches that they're not very good tactically? Obviously, over time, you mentioned Stoke City and kind of that identity of work hard, physicality, and there's probably a number of examples which kind of stick to those traditions. But I'm intrigued on whether that is changing over time. Obviously, there's cases with Eddie Howe and other British managers, but why do you think there is that outlook towards British managers not being that good tactically in comparison to maybe your Guardiolas and your Klopps? Prime example is a little bit around Gareth Southgate and kind of thinking about his performances in World Cups, and that is always challenged around these tactical information and his playing styles, etc. But what do you think that is, and where do you think that comes from?
Well, good question. I think it's. I don't know. I'm not a big Gareth Southgate fan, so I won't get into that. I like some of the things that he does I like how he gets the group together. I like that side and like the identity. I really like in terms of, the 3 pillars that we talk about of how we got the team to be, and I think brilliant on that side. I think about,
Are we missing something? Are we not developing ourselves effectively in that respect?
I think, you can't even say that our education system, because there is some really, I think that the problem is you get like some really good coaches who they're just not given, the chances, are they? You look like Potter, you've got, Eddie Howe, Steve Cooper's doing, I know he's Welsh, but he's still British, is doing a great job now. But it's like when these young coaches get in, they're not given the time, and then people are always going to proven managers who've done something, who've done something abroad. Roy Hodgson, he should be retired now, shouldn't he? Playing golf every day, but he keeps coming back, and he's always got that hunger. I suppose Roy back in his time was one of the best 4-4-2 coaches there was, and such knowledgeable of the game, and watching him coach and listening to him, he was really good. I think sometimes it's put on from the presses, but I think the problem is, I think with too many, it's an English tradition, isn't it? We big people up too early, and we want to knock them down as soon as it turns on them, really. But I think there is some good, there is good coaches out there. I think probably a lot of the coaches that you see are in the background, doing things behind the scenes, not necessarily managers.
Yeah.
And the role of the managers has changed. There's definitely a lot more as you go down the leagues. Managers coming, English managers, but not getting that job at the top job. And I suppose it's sometimes it's some of them coaches and managers who get given the jobs are on name rather than on what they've done in the game, rather than their coaching ability and the hours they put out on the grass. I think the other thing you've got to look at as well from British coaches is it's only something like 17% of players in the Premier League are British as well.
Yeah.
So does that have a knock-on effect on how many coaches are going to get through? And is the household name the one people, are they going to give the opportunities? And I think if they're going to get the opportunities because they get a good team around them, they probably get some good coaches around them. And you look at some of the coaches who've gone on to get good careers in the game. Carl Robinson, with Incy and that, and then he's gone out and he's done really well in a lower league. The guy Rangers who's under Gerrard, so they get a good team around them. They've got good connections with clubs. They played, so I suppose they're more management than hands-on coaching as you would. But there's no. There was the guy went to coach at Real Madrid. There's another good example of it.
Paul Clement,
that's the one. No, so I think there's a lot of really good coaches out there, but they just, I think you've also got to think about foreign ownership in the Premier League. How many teams are owned by foreign managers? Are they going to more likely to bringing in someone who's been around the game and done it than somebody else?
I suppose you need the team around you. You mentioned kind of assistants and that as well. You think of maybe the Gerrard, Lampard, the kind of team around them. I suppose it's kind of a package, but it's the manager that always gets the criticism, or even on a positive note, the reward for what they do. So I suppose that's kind of another layer towards it in terms of who do they have around them to kind of help with that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you got to get your support staff in your team right, and everyone's got to be on the same page, and everyone's got to be falling in the same direction. But then there's other managers who've done a good. David Moyes still won the whatever that league's called last year, but kept them up and have done a great job at West Ham and doing well this season. And I think there's sometimes. Again, I think sometimes it is the style that you brought up on. Moyes, Sean Dyche, how they're seeing that, Sam Allardyce. Well, they play a style of football which is effective. It can be just as effective because of the players that they've got, and that's why they play that type of football. I know Ancelotti went in Everton and did well with them there, but I think a lot of it is about their style and what people want. And I say, go back to the game model. What are you going to bring to the club, and what are you going to bring to the club? What's your style? And some people are just like, it's like a brand, isn't it? They want to certain that brand of football, and maybe we are in England or in Britain. There's still that type of scene that of being more work hard, get stuck in, rather than being a little bit more. I would go back to the outside, but on the negative or defensive side, rather than being more on the front foot side, and a little bit more proactive side. Really, I think
it was the humours around it is like Brexit football, people called it, don't they? And I think I was speaking to an historian actually a couple of weeks back, and they mentioned kind of the war period and kind of that masculine identity, and that's kind of associated with kind of sport, and that's kind of portrayed within English football of this work hard ethic. And I think the fans are kind of working class, and that's replicated if you can keep the fans happy through that kind of showing of strength and unity, then it kind of enables the team to be successful and a unity via that way. So I think it kind of comes from a range of different areas, but it's interesting how that is played out now and how that might adapt in the future in terms of developing those knowledges to become better coaches.
I was thinking at Everton, and probably one of the successful periods Everton have had, realistically. Like, all right, Moyes was a good success in terms of like, but also the brand of, was it under Martinez? They got to think to final and cup final. Yeah, I don't really think that suits Everton, and more like get the ball forward, get crosses into the box, Duncan Ferguson, Calvert-Lewin, that when he's been around, and I think that's what they're. I think that's what that's. I think for me, that's Everton's identity. And I think Goodison, when Everton play that football, that excites the Goodison, and that's what they've grown up on doing. I think so, like Martinez at times, it didn't excite them, but it was effective at times. But it's actually, well, that's not what they wanted. So I think you're totally right at the area of where you're at. Man City have got this brand now of playing football, but I still remember being at some of the City early games and I think, and the fan, get it forward, stop playing around with it there.
But it kind of relates to what you said about Stoke City as well, and how that adaptation can actually jeopardise football club in terms of staying in the league. I just want to kind of bring you towards back towards kind of this pedagogy area and kind of looking at culture and kind of leadership within football. What do you think makes a good leader, and how does the information that you've kind of associated with maybe technical and tactical knowledge be installed within the culture to enable people to believe in an idea and a philosophy?
I think good leader is trying to take. You're not the person you are in charge of it. But I think a leader, is someone who will give responsibility to people and help people develop, and try and work as a team. And I think that's why it's important, if you're a leader, try and share your ideas with the players, get some of the players' ideas and see how you can get on board. Or I think then that's where you think, well, actually, can we find players who somehow have the shared idea? And I think sometimes if you're a coach or a manager, if you put more autonomy on the players and have a good captain who's the leader, you can worry about all the other side of it and you can look in. But if you've got to be, I think sometimes in management, if you're in there involved as a leader and you've got to do everything else, I think that's why the modern manager is less on the grass doing all the coaching technical side. It's more about watching players, managing the relationships, looking what motivates players, what moves them down, having them little chats, having them little one-to-ones while your coaches are doing And if you, or I think sometimes if the coaches aren't that type of person and they want to be on the grass, they've got to have someone else who's doing that approach really. I think there's going to be still boundaries as such, but like being able to go and speak, being like letting the players know they come and speak to you. I think not putting your dirty washing and laundry, a little bit like what's happened United now with Sancho. Now I think that if you've got problems with like Mourinho, or quite a few managers do, and I don't really like to talk about. I don't think anything. You should keep that away from the press. That should be dealt with, at home, behind closed doors.
Do you think that approach is wrong then in terms of Sancho and the issue there?
I just don't see what you get out of it by slagging someone off. Me personally, in the full domain. No, I'm not going to go on Twitter. Oh God, I wish my missus would do the bloody dishes. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. Because you do that, and just take a humanistic approach. Yeah. I do that, I'm going to get over, get on the phone, going to cop for it, aren't I?
Yeah.
It's going to make the situation worse.
Yeah.
Sort out the problem. Yeah. By you going out, yeah. I think the old days people might have done that, but I think sort out behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Media trained, come up with an answer, protect the player, protect you, because as soon as that relationship's broken down, I think it's very hard to get back, and that trust. You've already thrown me under the bus once. Are you going to do it again?
Yeah.
Vice versa with players, really doing it to the coach. It's like, yeah, you might have an issue with the coach. All right, if the coach gets sacked or it's gone, and that it's not going to affect. Okay, you might go right, but at that time when you're in that environment, I think it's just. I think it's a respect thing. I would not like to go on and slag somebody off for not doing anything to somebody. Deal with it inside and go from there. Really, for me, yeah, it's just I think times have changed to do that now, and I think it's about speaking to myself. Right, if the standards are, we don't know. We're just, and he's, look, you're not training now. We expect you to do it. Manchester United. If you want to be in this team, I expect you to do X, Y, and Z. If you're not going into buying that, okay, we need to look at the next thing. Okay, if you're not going to do that, you're not going to play much for me. Maybe we need to get you a loan. Maybe we need to get out. I want to help you because I want you to play. Yeah. That type of thing, really.
It's interesting. I spoke to a Premier League footballer a couple of months back. He said the exact same thing. If we compared two managers, and said one manager was kind of hiffing and butting around certain things, and then when the new manager came in, he was straight to the point, and it made him actually work harder and better, and saw more success on the pitch with him. And I think it's interesting how those kind of two approaches are common within the game, like even today, but previously as well. What do you think managers might be hesitant a little bit like that? They're trying to keep the peace, or whether they're trying to not upset anyone, or how do you kind of be bold as well in terms of your leadership? Is it a trait that's learned, or is it nurtured?
I think it's about making that right. Make it when you've got that's why you're put in that leadership position. You've got to make decisions. You've got to make tough decisions. Whether it be in football, whatever industry, but it's about making that I think nowadays you've got to make the right call of when you're going to go. No, this is the line. This is what we're going to do. I think the old style was that was the trend. Oh well, I know this to go and do, and I think it's about making the right time, the right call of when you're going to know this is how it is. I think sometimes it's when you go in a new place, setting the boundaries, letting people know this is what I expect, but this is how you're going to do. I think if you just go in and don't have any boundaries, I think it's hard to pull back. Yeah. Like even like a young coach with kids, if you go in straight away and you're all over and there's no real little bit of like, this is what I expect, this is what I'm going to do, I think it's very hard teaching the same. I think if you don't have the boundaries, it's very hard to try and get it back in, whereas you can start, this is what I expect, this is what I'm going to do, and then you can let things relax sometimes, and as soon as standards start, I think it's easy to pull it back in, but if you don't start with anything, I think it's very hard to get it back in.
How's football coaching changed you as an individual? Has it made you develop new skills, or kind of made you think differently about the world?
I think it's made me. It's changed me because I suppose my early time in football was all about knowledge, I know loads about football. I did my A licence dead long, did my B licence dead long, was working in academies. Yeah. And it was kind of like getting respect more because I knew loads about the game. And even in some of the environments I was in non-league, so I'm coaching, but with players who were older than me. And I think that's where I was like, oh, and then realised it's not about that. It's about personalities, getting to know people. And I think that's where that building relationships with people has helped me. And I think making make decisions, not making rash decisions in management, I think is important in leadership.
So that's tapering your emotions.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes you've got to not hide your emotions, but I think sometimes you've got to take emotions out of decisions. But I think you've got to take the whole situation. And I'm very much in my idea of work, like I think family is important, your kids are important, doing things that are like situations, and it's like putting things in perspective, what's more important sometimes. Sometimes the little one's sick, well, if someone's little one's sick, well, go and look after the little one, but can sort out work, because in the greatest scheme of things that can happen. So I think coaching's really helped me dealing with people, different situations, multitasking. Because when you come into a football, and all grassroots football coaches are coming in, when you're in academy football, I turn up, I coach, I go home. On Saturday, I'll turn up, I'll sort this thing out. You're a grassroots coach, you've got to organise. You're probably doing the subs, and for your only coach, you're doing subs, you're arranging the games, you're doing sign-on fees, you're trying to coach, you're doing 40, 50 roles. So in my role, coach, I just coach. I don't have to do anything else. But I think when you've got to develop all these different skills, which you think all you need is a bag of ball and cones. Well, you don't really. So for the grassroots coach, I think that helps you develop skills, dealing with people, and then just understanding how to motivate people, what demotivates people. Shouting at people all the time, having a go at people all the time. Whether it be on a football pitch or anything, doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. It's helped me that, and it's helped me both. Coaching skills have helped me in the academic side, and leadership skills have helped me working with kids. And then I think also being a parent massively helps you, understand what kids are like. With an academy coach, I started off with the youngsters at City with the under-8s. I've coached up to youth team level. I'm now back in the kind of pre-academy age, we're working with the 8s again. The one age that I didn't enjoy coaching was 13, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. I just think of that. But then again, it's like when my lad and daughter are 13, 14, it's like, oh, that 13, 14-year-olds are all like... I know my daughter's come over that now, she's nearly 16, but again, it's just like, it's the same thing. It's that I'm not really good with that 13, 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't I'm still not. I've gotten better, but I'm not. Whereas, because it's like, they're that age where I think for me, one, I think it's very hard physically for them because we're on growth spurts. So the coordination's gone, but I think psychologically as well, they know better. They've got this idea of the world, they know this. That's why I like the youngsters so much, because I like the sponges and they believe anything. Then when you start getting 15, 16, I don't need this and I can't do that. Can you help me again now?
Yeah.
And it's interesting when I've had players at under 13 and I've got them and I've done it under 15. You didn't like me at under 13. You wouldn't listen to me at 13. Now, can we do this? Can we do this? And I think people are getting to know what age group you're best at. I think that's the other thing in football is you just get plugged in somewhere. No one's really asked me about what age group I prefer to coach. If you'd probably asked me 10 years ago, I'd always wanted the older ones. I think now, even when I took the older ones out, I want to work with the younger ones now, just by giving them little snippets of the enthusiasm, their enjoyment, really. It's understanding who you want to work with, where you want to work with, and knowing what motivates them and what they understand at that level they're learning. What do they know? What can they do? what gets, what motivates them, what demotivates them, and I think that's the key thing.
I think it's interesting in terms of what you said around kind of that transferability of skills, whether that's learning and coaching and applying that with, you mentioned your kids, etc., and also kind of how time enables you to actually reflect and think about what you actually want, in terms of sometimes we see level 1, let's get to the Premier League, but actually, you can be an expert in other areas, whether that's in youth development or certain phases within the youth development. For those that are listening or watching to this podcast, they might be inspired to be a coach or want to kind of start their journey or are on their journey, and they want to maybe absorb information from yourself, Mike. What advice would you give to them in terms of having a successful career in football coaching? What do you think are the main ingredients to do well in this area, and to kind of have an opportunity to apply their skills that they've learned, whether that's at university, etc., into a practical environment?
I think three main things really. One is you've got to spend time on the grass. You've got to put your hours in, going, watching, coaching. There's no fast track to being a good coach, and I think you do see so many people now who want to do level 1, the C license, B license, A license within 4 years. There's no fast track. You've got to do the time on the grass. You've got to do it you've got to work with different age groups, different formats again, 5v5 all the way up to 11v11. I think to develop your skills, working with other coaches. But yeah, and then it's the education side, doing your coaching badges. Then once you've done your badges, spending time applying them, seeing what works, what doesn't work. University courses as well. If you think about other professions, a PE teacher, you've got to do 4 years. You've got to do a university degree in a PGC. You've got to do a 4-year course to be a football coach. 30 days and you're a football coach. So where do you understand? Where do you learn all the other side?
Yeah.
Tap into other people. Network. Get to know people. And I think one of the big thing is maybe be authentic. Everyone can go on Twitter and get a coaching session. I think it's start thinking about what is you want your player to do. Yeah, use all the resources you've got, but actually try and make them authentic. And you be authentic as a person. Don't try and be Mike Walsh, Christy, whoever. Just be yourself and let the key things about you take you through. And there's things you'll take from all different coaches that you can mirror or be, but just be yourself and let your personality come across. And I think the last one is you've got to be able to connect with people of all ages, kids, adults, parents, and have some type of, I'm not saying you've got to be the best mate to the parents and go out on the drinking with them all the time, but just understanding who they are, where they're coming from, because that, what's the kid's family life like, stuff like that, because then it allows you to connect on that people. But spend time on the grass, educate and learn, and don't be a rush to get there. And you might have to start at the bottom to get there, and don't go straight away don't go think I'm going to go straight from one club to do it. No, sometimes you need to move to help you go forward and get the experiences, really.
So, final question: how would you like to be remembered?
As being a top golfer. No, I think
yet to see that.
Oh, yeah, you can see that. It's coming on. Now, I don't know. Me personally, one of the things I struggle with taking credit.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like I don't really like taking credit for things at times, and I don't like things sometimes when it's on me in the spotlight. Like the only graduation I've ever been to is my PhD one. I've never been to any other graduations because I just feels like. So I do struggle taking credit. So I just know if I've made if people, like the players I've coached, if coaches I've worked with, if they've just taken one bit of thing and whether it be good or bad that they've learned from me, I think that's what we remembered for. Oh yeah, I remember doing that. It's man now that I'm working on the field with coaches that I've done the coach educating. In fact, one of them I failed. Me and him still get on well now, and he actually went, no, I agree, I should have failed at the time. Which is, so it just being remembered as, that I've been able to give someone advice or pass one little thing on to someone. It's not very good for a coaching point of view, but there's a guy who did me level 1. He's never gone any further. He's coaching now with us, and it's still level 1, and I still see him now and again because he lives on the field, and he always goes on about the best thing he ever remembered from a coaching course was putting the square out and getting the kids to put all their bottles, and every time he wanted to speak to the kids when they had a drinks break was like, he just like thought that was like, forget all the technical that he just was that the one thing that little takeaway. Okay, it's not the best thing I've ever said, but it's just something that people have found useful that they can add on.
Well, brilliant. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, Mike. I want to wish you well as well in terms of the area that you're exploring. You mentioned your journal articles and how this might expand within the area of tactical information within football. Best of luck with that. And I just want to say thank you as well. Your information that you gave today is inspiring. It's educational. It's an area that's going to grow, and hopefully you grow with that. So I just want to thank you for your time.